Let me just share this. All right then. So I just heard Alex Craner on Dialogue Works. No, he was on Up Thinking Finance. He just said that in Mexico they had $450 million a week of cash from human trafficking and drug cartels, and that they had truckloads of cash that they had to get into the banks. And then I heard Martin Armstrong say that 80% of the oil and gas from Iran is being bought by by China. And that if China doesn't have a buyer for this product, like if China, if Iran, if there's a problem with Iran and they can't supply China, who are buying the product at a discount, then what are they going to do? And then when you look at the fact that the wicked stepmother, the EU, the UK, Switzerland, Bermuda, all the secrecy jurisdictions, this is the wicked stepmother, just had another bank go default, MFS, into global management. And this is affecting other banks like Jeffries Management and other, connected banks to the wicked stepmother. And this is coming. So now they can't, they were not able to get collateral security. In other words, they were not able to put together a special purpose vehicle with credit default swaps and strategic risk transfer swaps and interest rate swaps. They were not able to package that up for this MFS global management because they have a liquidity problem, right? So the whole problem with the wicked stepmother is liquidity. She doesn't have enough liquidity. And Alex Craner is saying, and he doesn't qualify how he knows this, but he's saying that they were getting $450 million a week in Mexico, that they had to truck it out in trucks to get it in the banks. And she doesn't have that liquidity anymore to maintain her non-performing loans on her balance sheets. And we have all these ships in the Arabian Sea just waiting to go into the Strait of Hormuz to deal with Iran. And I was looking at the ship finder, marine finder today. There are so many ships, military, like carriers, naval carriers, boots on the ground carriers that are ready to go to deal with Iran. And I had to ask myself today, I wonder if this is sort of like what happened during COVID when we had the Mercy hospital ship docked in New York, and we were seeing all kinds of weird stuff on that ship. And a lot of the Anons were thinking that, well, maybe something else is happening. We thought that they were treating children that might have been in tunnels, but we were also thinking, well, what if military tribunals are going on these ships? So in other words, what I'm suggesting is that is that Iran is hi Susie, that Iran is running out of they're out of runway. They're out of run that like whoever is like this Islamic regime is out of runway in Iran. And they are a proxy of the wicked stepmother. And she relies on them for, sanctioned oil and gas. She's not supposed to have it, but she's getting it from them. And she is now being squeezed from so many different directions. And all of everything that's happening is about the collateral security. Because in my opinion, what's really going on is that Ukraine is a theater for sovereign settlement of the balance sheets between the prince and the wicked stepmother. And whoever is in her orbit, which China is to a certain extent because they're all in on the ESG, but they're also a creditor, right? And the sovereign wealth funds that are in the Middle East are in her orbit with the ESG frameworks and regulations. But their capital is sort of trapped, kind of like Canada. Like Canada is also trapped in her frameworks, her ESG frameworks, her insurance ESG frameworks, because Canada does not have a domestic source of insurance capital. We don't have pools of capital to insure all our municipalities, our governments, our businesses, our domestic. So we depend on Europe for all of our insurance, and it's all ESG. It's all rules based, Like if you want to have a nice pipeline, well, you have to satisfy the ESG requirements. If you want to build a house, you want to do a construction project, well, now you need to have all of these requirements to satisfy all the rules. And so basically, the way that Canada has been cajoled into this system is because Ottawa, for some reason, decided in the 70s that it was a better deal to go with globalism than to stay with the United States. And they got into bed with this, knowing that it was could be a little bit shady, like Carney told you at the World Economic Forum. But he went ahead, he got in bed with it. They got in bed with it. Pierre Elliott Trudeau started it. And now we're at the point where we are, our pension funds, not all of them, but at least, probably at least 40% of our pension funds, maybe more, are trapped in Europe's rehypothecated collateral security nightmare system in Europe. And right now she's got $900 trillion, which was recently reported by the Bank of International Settlements, in rehypothecated derivatives. So in other words, every time she has a non-performing loan, all she does is she just prepares a special purpose vehicle for the banks and packages up, the bad debt and calls them credit default swaps or SRT or whatever you want to call it, and takes it off the balance sheet so it frees up capital so she can continue leveraging up. Well, now she's up to like $900 trillion. And in order to keep the system going, she needs liquidity all the time. Well, the liquidity was coming from Mexico, Venezuela, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and Epstein was right involved in this. And Canada is stuck there now with our assets, our collateral security in this system that's going on in Europe. And Carney has basically been put in position to be elbows up, like when you're thinking about hockey, well, he is an enforcer on the team. He's like saying to the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, elbows up, I'm sorry, but you can't have Gordie Howe Bridge for collateral security. Elbows up, I'm sorry, but you can't, Glencore in Switzerland, you're not going to get that smelter in Quebec. Elbows up, you're not going to get this and you're not going to get that. So he's running around the world basically proposing, that we do have, really good investments for you, but you're not going to get collateral security over here. You're going to get collateral security perhaps from the future value. And we're not prepared to accept your special purpose vehicles with your derivatives layered on top and loaning all your payments and fees and everything else into the vehicle, into our assets, because we are now connected. We are now North America, and we're doing business with the prince. And we're not, so if you want to come in, you have to be clean. You got to be a clean investor into Canada. You can't, no more. And that's what he means when he says elbows up. That's what he's talking about, right? It's about protecting North America. That's really, really what Carney is doing. But now the liquidity is drying up and Iran is on the table. And now she's going to have even more energy problems. And today Trump was gaggling with the press, and he said about Cuba, he said, well, we're talking to them, and, we have a lot of people here in America that would like to be, go back to Cuba. And so they're going to wrap up Cuba. They're going to basically be securing South America and all of the, secrecy jurisdictions in the Caribbean. They're all going to be wrapped up by Trump, and Greenland and Canada. So the whole hemisphere is going to be fresh and clean and not all of this nightmare because all Europe has been doing is yield extracting in the names of values like carbon, climate, LGBTQ, open borders, far shore, export, so her entire model is now crumbling. The entire European model of globalism is it's on its way to the dustbin. But along the way, we have to deal with all these temper tantrums coming from them because they don't want to reprice. And Ukraine is the theater for that. And so whenever you hear Carney say, well, we're going to be giving $2 billion today, and next week is going to be, $1 billion. Well, they're not actually like writing a check and handing over cash. What we're doing is we're having to deal with a very convoluted system of underwriting that involves many tranches, high risk, medium risk, low risk, tranches of special purpose vehicles that they have set up in their system to hide their non-performing loans. And to get a sort of an idea of how bad it is, it's $900 trillion. And Ottawa is totally captured by this. Like Ottawa never thought that Hillary Clinton would lose the election. Ottawa thought that the globalism was going to win and America was never going to come back. And they decided to go down this road. And we're shocked and had to turn their back on the JCPOA, the Iran deal. And if you go to the Q drops and look at the Iran deal, the terrible, terrible deal that Europe had in mind for the Americans, that they should pay $500 billion in cash to Iran, not to develop their nuclear facilities, all to set up Iran to be a black site for Europe. And it never came to fruition because Trump got elected. And now China's in a terrible bind. So every time you see Carney going somewhere, like he went to China, right? And he talked about the New World Order. Well, the wicked stepmother also went to China and everywhere. And she went to India. Now Carney's in India. Well, she went there first. So when she went to India, she told India, look, we can we will package up a special purpose vehicle for you, and we will invest in your blah, blah, blah. And we will add, you won't have to make any payments. We will add on the payments in the special purpose vehicle, and we will add on all the fees. We'll put it in there, and we will postpone too. We're willing to postpone. So if you have investors that want to come in, you could say, look, we've got Europe here willing to invest $1 trillion into your blah, blah, blah. And we'll take a step back and let them go into first position. It's just like when you get a mortgage on your house, and if you want to get a second mortgage, right, you can go behind your first mortgage, you get a second mortgage, the house is collateral security, and if you default, then who's ever in second position, they have to postpone to the first position. Well, it's the same thing. So this is Europe going to India, going to Brazil, the massive trade deals they said that they made. All they're doing is trying to offload their non-performing loans. That's all they're trying to do, because they don't have any resources. And they've shut down all of their, coal factories and their coal plants, and same with the UK. And they just came out today with some new document, and they're doubling down on their LGBTQ, and they're doubling down on their immigration, and they're doubling down on their new windmills and all the bullshit that they're doubling down on in Europe. They're digging their hole deeper and deeper. Can we dig the hole anymore? And Canada. Oh, yes, Canada's right there beside us. Meanwhile, Carney, with his elbows up, is running around the world behind them, doing, nope, you can't do this. Penalty, timeout. Nope, can't do that. That's what he's doing. You think the Prime Minister of Canada doesn't understand a special purpose vehicle and a credit default swap and a significant risk transfer swap and an interest rate swap and all the swaps and how they're trying to offload all these non-performing loans into these special purpose vehicles so they can free up more cash to leverage up some more, because they don't have enough liquidity. They don't have the liquidity. This is the problem. And unfortunately, we have a lot of trillions of dollars tied up over there. And they have trillions of dollars, by the way, tied up here in Canada. But we actually hold the upper hand. But Canadians are going to have to come to terms with the fact that you are not sovereign. You've never really been sovereign. And we need to manifest our destiny, and we need to be able to develop our resources in our land. We can't just, go on the king's land and take over the king's land, whatever is the crown land. But when we get past this situation, we'll be able to do that. And we'll be able to get rid of all these cartels in Canada as well. This has to happen. Ottawa wants this to happen. Ottawa has sent so many signals for so long that they want this. And they have told you, they have shown you many times. And they have. I've been documenting it. I've been documenting all of Ottawa's comms for people. Of course, you won't see rebel media reporting it. You won't see all of these influencers in Canada reporting what I've been documenting for the past 10 years, by the way. You actually think that public servants in Ottawa are not going to work because of rats, bed bugs, and bats? I'm sorry, but if you believe this kind of stuff, I'm sorry, but you're very grossly uninformed if you think that that's real. If you think that the Prime Minister of Canada can't afford an official residence, he's got to live in a rundown shack cottage that's 200 years old, not even 5,000 square feet, that's only got like a lick of paint on it. They didn't even spend more than 400 grand fixing the place up for him. Carney doesn't even live there, while the Governor General lives across the lawn in a palace, Rideau Hall. Come on now. Come on. "24/6 has rats up to the ceiling rafters while they're cooking food for the Prime Minister." This is not believable. These things are not believable. And Canadians have got to come to grips with the fact that you are not sovereign. You don't even know what it feels like to be sovereign. You have no clue. You've been sort of well taken care of with healthcare and education and all that great stuff, but you are taxed to death. Your government is basically throwing you a bone with a grocery tax rebate this year. But when you look at the way the global financial and the way the banks have set themselves up right now, they can't lose. You know, they can just package up their non-performing loans in a CDS, in an SPV with CDS or credit. I mean, it's right in the words. Credit default swap. Significant risk transfer. They could just take it right off the balance sheet and go ahead and just leverage up and leverage up and leverage up. This is exactly what they're doing. It's what Europe's a master at. But here's a very big difference between Europe and the United States. The United States is the reserve currency of the world. They have unlimited capacity to leverage up. They control the bloodstream, the currency of the world. The wicked stepmother does not have that kind of capacity. She doesn't have that power. She doesn't have anything worthwhile for us to trade. What do we need her for? Financial services? Insurance? She has no resources. She doesn't even have any potash for her crops. What do we need her for? Nothing. Nothing. Carney is just rotten to the core. It's just a convoluted mess. It is a convoluted mess. It is a convoluted mess. But we are actually, as Canadians, we're in a really good position because we're very good. We can develop our land, and we can do, we are naturally connected to America. Like, we belong together. Let's face it. Anybody that's trying to tell you that we should be with the Europeans, the worst snobs, the most hypocritical, hot-headed, ignorant people in the world have got to be the Europeans. And why would I want to be bothered with them? They are way over there. They are so far away across a giant ocean. Why do I have to be bothered with the king? Why do I have to be bothered with any of them? I mean, we have it all in Canada. We don't really actually need anyone. We need nobody. We are the jewel in her crown, that wicked stepmother's crown. We are the jewel in that crown. And we are We don't need to be in her crown. Like, we don't need anything to do with her. And she is a wicked, wicked bitch. I want nothing to do with Europe. I don't want nothing to do with their kings and queens and their snobbiness, and they're just so screwed up. They are so screwed up. They're degenerate too. They are the ones who brought all of their sexual, crazy, weird queerness to us. And Ottawa, let them. Ottawa, let them come in the door. Ottawa has played along with this. I don't know why they did that. And Ottawa is a bit of a strange place anyway, really. I mean, if you've never been there to Ottawa, it's a bit of a creepy town. It is. They have the ugliest subdivisions in Canada. I'm sorry. It's clinical. It looks like a clinical town. They have lost the plot in Ottawa. And I find it interesting that right after the Prime Minister of Luxembourg obviously did not get the Gordie Howe Bridge, we see MFS Global Management going into default in the UK. So they didn't get their collateral security that they wanted. And that's the only reason they come here. They need collateral security for their financial system, and they need liquidity to keep that system going, and they don't have it right now. And Trump is cutting it off everywhere. And he is not starting any wars. And he's got all his ships over there, and that, I think it's called the Arabian Sea. I don't know what it's called, just, outside the Strait of Hormuz, because I was on the Marine Finder today looking at the ships, and they're just sat there and they're just waiting for something. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're just waiting for them to wrap it up for whatever, because the people of Iran deserve to move ahead and forge their own destiny with their country without Islam lurking over them. Everything they do with their morality police and their and Islam is a problem in Africa, and Islam is a problem in Pakistan, and now today Afghanistan and Pakistan are going to go to war because of the border that the British drew up whenever they did. And Islam is a proxy for the Vatican and for the wicked stepmother. It's a very handy thing to have. These lunatics, these religious fanatics, and all of these, sovereign wealth funds like in Qatar and in the Middle East, they are all trapped in her ESG as well. They're all stuck in there. They all want to get away from it. They all would like to get away. And one of the best places in the world right now, if you want to, get your whatever capital you can to get away, to get future value. I was a private lender, and I can assure you that when I'm underwriting a loan for construction financing, I am concerned about the future value. Okay, I'm going to invest this money, but what will the value be when I'm done? Well, they want to get away from over there with the ESG constraints, and they would like to get safe harbors somewhere for some future value, or at least be able to park my capital safe and sound. And so when Carney goes over there and he makes these deals, when he's making the deal, though, he's not making the deal to benefit the wicked stepmother. He's making the deal to benefit the development, the rapid development, the cash flow of the Ring of Fire in Ontario, or the smelters, or the ports, or the refineries. But they're not going to be in a a position, they won't be in an ownership position. They'll be in a position as a lender. They'll probably have to postpone, but they'll never have any ownership position. But we're just trying to get the cash flowing to get development happening. And that's exactly what he's doing, because he is a custodian for Canada. He's not acting like a normal prime minister. He's actually acting into, for the economic development, to spearhead the development, not just of Canada, but he's working with Trump for North America. And the wicked stepmother, she is on the sidelines, and she is clutching her pearls, and she is biting her fingernails, because what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Well, there's nothing they can do. They actually really did have an extraordinary opportunity, the way they set that system up, to really probably really advance Europe in a very good way. But they were greedy, and they were lazy, and they got fat off the land, and they got corrupted and very degenerate. And now they need to just be put down. We just have to put them down. That's like, they didn't manage it ultimately very well at all under the Queen of England and all these other people that they really corrupted us, and they went after America. Like, they became very evil in their focus with all their NGOs and their UN and their international courts and everything they did. But what they have done is they have shot themselves, basically, because they never, and they thought they had it wrapped up. Like they thought they had this situation under control, and they thought that they could pull it off, and they failed. And they don't want to pay the piper now. They don't want to reprice. When the Chancellor of Germany comes out on the anniversary of the Ukraine war, and he says, well, we're not going to give up any territory, but there cannot be any concessions. We can't give up. Well, he's not talking about Ukraine. He's talking about Greenland. He's talking about Canada, because this is the collateral security that's trapped in that system, that financial quagmire of the ESG quagmire, the collateral security in there, and he doesn't want to let it go. And that's why we get the King of Sweden coming to Canada and trying to sell us their Gripen jets. And that's why we get the Prime Minister of Luxembourg. Like, these people never bothered to visit us before, when they thought that everything was wrapped up and fine for them. They're coming here now. And what happens when they don't get what they want? Well, we get these horrible situations that are just tragic and awful, and I don't know how real they are, but Prometheus report is good. Yes, Prometheus updates are absolutely perfectly aligned with me. We are totally together in our analysis of what's going on. Yeah, I agree with that. And they use the UN and their UNDRIP with the Native Indians in Canada, the so-called Native Indians, because I don't really believe that they are. And I think they're kind of new to Canada, like maybe 300 or 400 years ago. And they use that as a choke point, right? As a choke point. Well, you can't get that pipeline. You can't have that ring of fire. Well, you can't do this. Well, you can't do that. And we need billions of dollars. And we have to have hundreds of billions of dollars coming through this Crown Corporation. And where does the money go? Well, it probably ends up in some secrecy jurisdictions, probably liquidity for the wicked stepmother. I mean, she has so many ways to get into Canada and to steal from us, to the King's Privy Council in Ottawa and all these crown corporations. And they could just steal the money. They could just take the money. And there's no way you can track it. And they have sovereign immunity. Bank of International Settlements, World Bank, UN, they all have sovereign immunity. I can't go and audit them. And we have these people in Canada that are willing to provide services for that, to do it, to go along with it. And they do. Most of them are probably useful idiots and have no idea what they're actually really doing. They have a job. They're probably well paid. Maybe they get paid a couple $100,000 a year and they're living on a reserve somewhere and they're getting couple $100,000 a year. And all they have to do is go sign some document or stand up in front of the microphone, and they have no idea what they're actually really doing. And they have no idea where the money goes. They don't care. I mean, there's a lot of people that are pretty careless and they don't really, it doesn't bother them. They're not invested in the truth, or they don't want to know, and doesn't bother them if they don't know, if they don't care. They're getting paid. And, that's going on in America too. The truthers care. I care. You care. You're here on my channel. We care. We're looking. We're trying to figure this out. But there's a lot of people that really don't care. I mean, I've never been in the the public sector. I've always had my own business. So I really care about things like real estate values and government spending and taxes. But if you're somebody that works for the public sector and you're just getting a big fat paycheck all the time, you don't care. Government's taking care of me. Why should I care? 1 in 4 people now work for the government in Canada. And so how much longer can Ottawa keep this circus going? Well, according to my Snow White theory, this cannot continue for too much longer. Like, it's not going to continue for years and years. It might continue for months, maybe 18 months if they're lucky. But Ottawa cannot continue on like this, and neither can America. And so things are going to be broken along the way here in the very short period of time. And there's going to be some major reconfiguring going on in terms of their loyalties and what we're doing, and what exactly the pressure is building. Like, if Alberta has their petition goes through and they get to have their referendum question along with Daniel Smith's referendum questions, then we might even see the Crown and Right of Canada have a severe blow this year. One thing's for sure, the Crown and Right of Canada has to go. It's completely failed. It's a failure. It's unfair. It's lopsided. It's stuck. It's trapped. It's stuck in a really horrible situation. It's so bad that the public servants of Canada are afraid to go to work. Right? The public servants of Canada are afraid of bats, rats, and bedbugs at work. So the Crown and Right of Canada is incompetent at this point. They are discombobulated. They are, trying to keep the lights on in the country while the custodian Carney, with his elbows up, going around the world, giving a penalty check to anybody that thinks that they're going to get collateral superior title or collateral security over Canada right now. That's all he's doing. He's the gentleman in charge of Canada. That's what he is. Trump called him out at Waco, Texas, before he got reelected. He said, I've been talking to Canada. I've been talking to the gentleman in charge of Canada. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. And Carney is in charge of Canada because Carney understands the wicked stepmother and the way she does business and how she does her loaning and how she writes off her non-performing loans and her control grid with ESG and the insurance problem that we have. And it is a problem because if you don't have insurance, you don't roll over your debt. If you're a municipality and you can't qualify for insurance because you won't satisfy her conditions, you can't roll your debt over. You can't get a pipeline. And her whole system requires collateral security and liquidity to keep it rolling over. Martin Armstrong says, the default happens when you don't have enough new debt to pay off the old debt. Well, she's having a problem now because Trump has shut down her liquidity, like Alex Craner said today on Up Talking Finance. $450 million a week just from Mexican cartels going into secrecy jurisdictions in Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. Well, if you don't have that liquidity, you're going to have defaults. Well, we're already seeing it. MFS Global today, it's announced on Zero Hedge. And that's just the beginning. But she's very clever, the wicked stepmother, and she created this whole thing. And she knows how to package her loans and write off her non-performing loans and how to use those credit default swaps to do it. She's very good at it, and she's very clever at it. She's got a lot of leverage over a lot of other countries. And it's really painful for countries not to go along with what she wants because she controls the media. She controls the top 5 media corporations in the world. She could just start a whisper campaign on your country. Oh, they might be a sovereign debt risk. Oh, you better sell there. So she can crash your bond markets if you don't go along with what she wants. Like, she's extremely powerful. She really is. She has a lot of soft power. Well, she's an ancient power. She's an ancient power, right? And she controls the narrative. And she controls all the NGOs. She controls so many different levers of power that Trump has been having to fight against. She controls politicians. She controls drug cartels, human trafficking networks, Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing worse than a cornered rat, right? And so Ottawa, being a favorite pet of this system, has been in an absolutely horrific, horrible bind. Like, they don't sleep. And they're threatened every way you can imagine, I'm sure, in Ottawa. And that's why we have Carney. You think he wants to be Prime Minister of Canada? Like, he doesn't even have an official residence, for God's sakes, He had his campaign was down with Webster and oh, woe is me, and the elbows up, and his DWW sweatshirt on, and elbows up, and well, the reason he has that is because he has now, because he's aligned with Trump, he has the power now to go around the world and basically point the finger and say, you know what, you don't get that. No, you don't get that. Oh, you mean to tell me that you got this special purpose vehicle and you think you're going to take priority over us? Sorry, that's not going to go. You're not getting that. No, you're not getting that. You're not getting that. You're not getting that. So what he's doing is he's basically correcting everybody's balance sheet around the world. He's running around the world, and so is Champagne. And Chrystia Freeland is sat in Ukraine, right? And he's telling them, well, you don't get that. You don't get that. You don't get that. No, we're not doing that. And he's got the Canadian and United States military behind him, protecting him. And he's sorting out the books, the sovereign ledgers, essentially, is what he's fixing. And they're slowly going along and doing this. But when they don't get what they want, sometimes they get really mad and they do really bad things to us. And they're probably going to do worse things, even worse things to Alberta as their process goes along. Like, I grew up in Calgary, okay? We didn't have water mains breaking in the middle of winter in Calgary on 16th Avenue, Sarcee Trail. That just didn't happen. Suddenly, recent memory, twice now, the water mains have been, burst in Calgary. And they say, oh no, the city didn't maintain it. And I don't believe it. And to be pretty honest with you, I don't believe most of the stuff that they say anymore. Like, things have to add up and make sense. And they don't. They don't make sense. And I mean, I've seen the RCMP have to go through some really, really bad stuff. And through my lens, what I see is them constantly fighting off foreign problems in Canada. And we have so much infiltration, and it's not just the wicked stepmother. China has tried very hard to get a foothold here as well. But China is not, everybody right now is framing China as the big threat to Canada. And I'm sorry, but it's not there. It's not there. China wants good customers. They'd like to be able to invest and get a yield. Everybody wants a yield. It's all about the yield. Everybody wants to be able to make a good investment for their country and have a good, solid yield. And it's Ottawa's job to make sure that if we do a deal for foreign direct investment, that our people are able to have decent jobs, good jobs, and be able to, grow the country and grow our economic development with whatever country that we're dealing with. But China is not, they don't print US dollars. They don't, they're not really, they've never really attacked anybody in the last 5,000 years. Even their military, when I was looking at it today, doesn't really have the capacity even to deal with the Iran situation. Even if they wanted to come to Iran's defense, they don't have the capacity. Okay? Their capacity is as a creditor, but they also are being leaned on by the wicked stepmother to accept her bad loans in hers because they have a real estate problem. So their commercial real estate is under a lot of stress, and even probably domestic real estate. And so if she can come in and, prop up their real estate values by investing with her special purpose vehicles and her magical mirror, then yeah, why wouldn't they maybe do that? Look at doing that. But they're not like out to take over Canada. And that's never going to ever happen. But it just seems like the talking heads in Canada right now are trying to frame China as a major threat, which they're not, in my opinion. Nobody seems to want to talk about what's really going on, the real true picture with Europe and Canada and the United States. Like, I see it very clearly, but and you know what? I really hope that Alberta is successful, and I'm sure they will be. I think it's, by the way, I think the whole Alberta situation is very well planned out. This is all planned out. It's all going to come to fruition, and there's no, it's going to be a fracture in the crown. The crown and right of Canada is going to have to go. It's going to have to be retired. Okay, and that is part of Carney's plan. It's not going to stay. And when Pierre Poilievre came out the other day and said that Carney shouldn't talk about the rupture with our greatest trading partner while talking about the New World Order with China, he completely mischaracterized Carney's speech at the World Economic Forum. Carney, you have to listen to what he says in a little bit of a different way, the way that he delivers what he says. For example, when he said, our relationship with the United States is over. Yeah, our relationship with the United States, as we have always known it, is over. It's done. It's totally done. Because we're entering into a new relationship. He doesn't say that part, but that's the reality. It has to be the reality. There's no other reality available. Okay. Anyway, I think I'm done now. I got all that off my chest. Oh. Everything's going to be okay. It will be really, really good on the other side of this. We just have to deal with this miserable, miserable stepmother that needs to really needs to be set aside by the people of Europe, and they need to get a grip on themselves and take over their continent from they're Nazis, essentially, is what they are. They are communists, they are Nazis, they are extremely dangerous people, and make up with Russia and mend their fences and move forward. But they're never going to be the kind of power that they were. Like, they're not going to have this financial power grid like they had. They're not going to have all their welfare that has been paid for by Canada and the United States. They're not going to have all those goodies anymore. They're going to have to fix themselves and rebuild themselves. And they're going to have to deal with all their migrants and all the problems that have been visited upon them by their elites. They're going to have to deal with their elites. And we're going to have to deal with ours as well. Okay, Laurentian elites in Canada. Like, you're not going to have your cartels. And you're not going to have all of the things that you have been enjoying for a very long time. That's not going to stand in our future. We're going to have competition. We're going to have family farms. We're going to have all kinds of nice things for the people. You're not going to have your hold over us anymore. We are fixing all of this, and you're going to have to step aside as well. Okay. Love you all. Bye for now.